Hey friends, I know you have heard the advice that is out there in the world. Be visible, post more, show up more, be more accessible, be consistent in everything you do, be everywhere all at once. And that advice isn't wrong, but the question comes down to, or at least one of them comes down to, what does that cost us as people? This constant visibility, this constant being out in the public eye. What does that cost us? This is the final act in our unpaid labor arc of podcasting, where I've been talking about the work that goes on behind the scenes that is not the writing, that oftentimes doesn't come associated with a paycheck, that can be exhausting and a major source of burnout for us if we aren't careful. So that's where we are at today. So hello and welcome to Authority. I am E. Prabilski. I am here to spill the tea in the publishing industry. If you don't know me, I am an author, editor, book publisher of almost 20 years. I'm on the board of directors for the Editorial Freelancers Association. I've done speaking at a bunch of different author conferences. I am the author of How to Write the Damn Book and How to Publish the Damn Book, and I have done a lot of different things in my life. So we're going to get into this final arc here, what it costs to be a public figure, what it's like, and how that plays into this whole unpaid labor conversation we've been having so far. So visibility is work. It's not just exposure. I mean, exposure's part of it, but it is work in order to be visible. It's a constant thing. It's equated with this exposure and opportunity because we oftentimes view it as just opportunities rather than hard work behind the scenes to make those opportunities available to us. But you and I both know there's a whole lot of behind the scenes. There's creating content like I'm doing right now with this video, responding to emails, deciding what to post or what not to post online, worrying about whether or not something we want to talk about online is going to get us into trouble or not, because cancel culture is a real thing and it can be deeply problematic. I have witnessed authors get canceled who absolutely didn't deserve it, and the fear that we experience over that, like one wrong move, and even if it's not a wrong move, gets us slammed. Then we have the planning of all of these things, like my recording this podcast. It comes with having to record it, script it, edit it, upload it. Then I have to put together all of the posts for people so that they know that it exists and put that out on my social media. And all of these things, it takes time and focus and energy, and it takes a lot of it because it's a lot of work. There's also an emotional side to this. I kind of alluded to it when I was talking about the fear of being canceled. But being in the public eye invites people to react to us. That's kind of our job, is for people to see us and respond. And sometimes those responses are thoughtful and kind and wonderful, and sometimes they are truly horrific. I mean, we've all seen comment sections. And staying engaged and checking notifications when I have a video up and I'm looking for responses, or responding to comments when I post things on TikTok or other places, all of those things take a lot of energy. And it's part of that being visible and appearing like I'm engaged with my people. Because if I just post something and then never respond to a single comment, if I don't answer people on my Substack articles and engage with them, they don't feel like I'm paying attention to them individually. And I'm a small enough creator that at this point in my career, I can individually respond. I am not a Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Brandon Sanderson. I respond to almost everybody if I feel like it warrants a response. And I do that on LinkedIn, I do it wherever people are engaging with me. And it also, like all of that engagement and having to think about it, means that I need to consistently consider my tone, consider how I'm responding. I need to think about my responses. Because I could run afoul of something if I phrase something wrong, or even if I don't phrase something wrong, somebody could take what I say in a way I didn't intend it to be taken. Because that's how humans are, that's how communication is. We can't control the message the other person takes from what we say all the time, as much as we wish we could, and this has a disproportionate weight on marginalized creators. So folks like me, where I am trans, I'm queer, I'm disabled, I'm neurodivergent. It really hits people of color hard, or other folks who are marginalized for any variety of reasons. And that marginalization means that we are disproportionately exposed to some of the nastier elements of the world. It doesn't happen all the time, but I do get anti-trans commentary on my posts with unpleasant frequency. It doesn't happen all the time because I fly under the radar, and since I'm not a trans woman, most people don't notice me, or they clock me as female and just refer to me as she, which it's, I guess, safer, but it certainly doesn't feel great. This visibility can also, with the neurodivergence, I oftentimes have to really deeply consider what I'm saying and how I'm saying it because I'm autistic. Being autistic means that I am prone to not being as clear on certain social conventions as other people. And that can push me into masking really hard. I recently had a conversation with my therapist about how my, I believe it was the CAT-Q, my CAT-Q quotient, that is the test that we take to see how much we're masking, has changed, and mine has actually gone up quite a bit since we started. And the only thing that's changed is being more visible and being more out there. So trying to balance that type of stuff with authenticity, with engagement, is extremely difficult. Which isn't me complaining. I'm not saying that I don't want to do it or whining about my life, because I chose this. It's a decision that I made, and I don't regret having made it. But it does have a cost. It does create difficulties. In addition to that, I'm also a Christian, and I don't talk about it a ton, but my faith is a deep part of who I am, and when I do mention it, there are a cavalcade of people who either are atheist and angry at Christians and think that I'm an idiot, which is okay, they're welcome to believe that, or the people who bother me more than that are actually other Christians telling me that I'm doing Christianity wrong and I'm going to be condemned. I haven't talked about it much on the podcast, but I'm actually getting ready to go to seminary because I plan to be a minister. So people coming at me about my Christianity and doing it wrong when they're Christians offends me a great deal more. Atheists don't actually upset me because they're usually more thoughtful. And if they aren't thoughtful, it's not like I'm being insulted by people who I shouldn't be insulted by. And I don't have a problem with atheists or people of any faith. Whatever your faith walk is, whatever your practice is or isn't, that's fine. I'm not here to judge you. But that kind of example, that kind of being out there and being present, I've had to put a lot of thought into how much of my faith, which is obviously, since I'm planning to be a minister, a deep part of who I am, how much do I want to share that with my audience? Will my audience connect to that, or will they reject me? How is that going to look? And I have to make all these decisions about what I share and what I don't, because exposure does not guarantee that people will be kind to me when I am exposing all of these things and being vulnerable on the internet, which is, as we all know, a risk. The next kind of piece I want to get into here is that pressure to be constantly consistent and personable. There's this intense pressure for creators to always appear warm and like we're in community with people and always feel like we'd be receptive to sitting down and just having coffee at any point in time. I'm often those things. That it's not an act that you're seeing, this warmth and this affect that I have on camera and in my podcast. I am who I am all the time. This is genuinely me. This is just me. I don't put on an act for anybody, but everybody has days where they're like, I would much rather run screaming into the hinterlands than interact with another human being, please. Do not talk to me, do not acknowledge me, I don't exist. And when you're in the public eye, you can't really have those moments, per se, in any kind of space that is a public space. You can't be grumpy that day. You can't be extra sensitive that day. You have to be pretty consistent in how you show up all the time, and that's exhausting. And when every post you make or every article you write can draw you into multiple conversations with different people responding to different things, and people tag you in stuff wanting your opinion and your thoughts on stuff, which I'm happy to give, to be clear. Again, I'm not complaining. These things do take energy, though, and they take thought. and they take effort and work. And it's kind of work that oftentimes we sort of gloss over and ignore, and don't really pull out and discuss in the open, which is why I'm having this conversation with you today. And a lot of that, as I mentioned earlier, the neurodivergence piece of this, that constant need to be on, so to speak, when I'm in public, is incredibly anxiety-inducing. It is very stressful. I can do it. Before I got into writing and publishing, I did customer service, so I have friends who've watched me immediately flip the customer service switch, and boom, I'm customer service, and I'm all happy and smiley, and how are you today? So it's so nice to see you, thank you for coming, yada yada yada, because I can do that on the turn of a screw. Anybody who's worked customer service usually can, because that's a necessary skill that we learn when we're interfacing with the public. And it's exhausting, because I have to go, it's a push-me-pull-you sort of situation. And a lot of the time, I will completely admit that, if I have a post to get blown up, and it does happen on occasion. I had a post on LinkedIn go absolutely bonkers a couple weeks ago and ended up with a couple hundred replies. And I went through and I responded to almost everybody. And I spent a day doing that, and it felt like I accomplished absolutely nothing, even though what I was doing was connecting with people, building my brand, developing relationships with certain individuals, having meaningful conversation that is related to our industry, but it didn't really feel like I was doing much. It just felt like the day suddenly vanished, and I spent all of it on LinkedIn. It's one of those things where all of these costs kind of come together, and they can create a real time sink and an energy sink, and it's not a thing that I regret doing. It's not a thing I think most of us regret doing, but we have to talk about it. Leaving it in the shadows to fester and crawl around and get bigger and bigger means that we aren't really discussing it. And being an author, being a writer, and putting your work out there does mean that you are a public figure. You are taking the steps needed to become a public figure. And unless you've spent time in spaces with other public figures talking about that, it's not something we're usually prepared for, because most books about writing and publishing and other such things just talk about the nuts and bolts of publishing. It talks about how to get your book onto KDP or how to get it into drafted digital. It talks about how to write the thing. It talks about formatting and marketing and all these choices. It doesn't talk about what being a public figure means. And we oftentimes don't know what that entails. There are books and podcasts and other things about how to be a public figure. Those exist, but we don't know that we need to engage with that material. And creating the space between the public and the private, and how you delineate that, and how you navigate that, and what you share with people and what you keep close to your chest. It is genuine work. More eyes, as I mentioned, we equate exposure with opportunity, right? More eyes doesn't always mean more opportunity either. My platform is not itty bitty. It's not gigantic. It's a reasonable mid-sized platform. I am not a massive creator, but I'm also not under a rock. That exposure, those eyeballs on, mean that people have expectations of me. People have expectations that I'm going to come out with a podcast every couple weeks, and articles in between, because many of them are paying for my Substack articles. And so I have to make sure that I'm meeting those expectations and giving them what they're paying to receive. And in addition to that, I have TikTok videos to record. I have Instagram reels to create, which are oftentimes the same as my TikTok videos. But I have photos to take of things I'm doing, of maps I'm making, of projects I'm running. I have an obligation to my readers to tell them, hey, this is where I'm at in the manuscript. I have obligations to my clients. All of this exposure, my top video currently has 2 million views on TikTok. And it has absolutely nothing to do with writing. I was just super excited about this particular AI tool that I had discovered called Goblin Tools, and I made a video about it showing off what Goblin Tools does, and that video went bananas. Everything else on my channel is between 200 and 400 views for the most part. A couple of them broke 1,000 when they were controversial, but that video has nothing to do with writing. More eyes didn't, and the millions plus of views that it brought in, and my follower count at one point was over 10,000. It's dropped a bit because TikTok is having some stability problems. But a lot of those viewers, a lot of those views, a lot of those hits, I didn't make book sales off of it. People follow me on social media, but they don't necessarily buy my books. And that's a common thing where we kind of equate all this exposure. Look how big my platform is. Look how many people read my thing. Look how many people are signed up for my this, that, and the other thing. But they aren't necessarily buying our books. So we're not getting paid for that exposure. Those eyeballs on us don't do anything, and yet we feel the pressure of having to perform for those eyeballs and meet their expectations. And we aren't gaining anything monetarily out of it. Now, again, I'm not upset that I have a reasonably sized audience. I'm not upset that I have a good sized platform in multiple places. I'm not upset that those people have expectations of me. They should have expectations of me. I built those expectations. So the fact that they have them is my own doing because I created it. This isn't creator whines about being famous, because I'm not famous enough to whine about being famous by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not upset about the work. But we do have to acknowledge it and call it out. And I have to remember that I am just a single person. I am one dude. I am one human being who is running a bunch of different things. I'm running this podcast. I have to do all my social media. I write, or I try to write anyway. I have editing clients whose works that I'm responsible for and deadlines to meet for them. I have my church work that is multifaceted. I'm getting ready to go to grad school. I have all of these obligations. I am one person. And we are coming close to the point where I'm at capacity. And I have to figure out what is going to give. One of the things that gave was doing this podcast every other week instead of every week, because I just was running into issues of time and energy and focus and the ability to just regularly do this. And I didn't want to set up expectations and then fail them consistently. So I have decided to go to every other week. I mentioned that the last podcast, I'm mentioning it this one, because I absolutely need the breathing room and the extra admin time, because recording this podcast takes an entire day of my week. Not a complaint. I love doing this. I do it because I enjoy it. And I acknowledge that it takes time. Real time, real work, real effort. And I have to balance that. As it may probably sound, the feeling like I would like to drop everything and retreat to a cabin in the woods and never be seen again, please. I would like to be a cryptid. As appealing as that is, it's unfortunately not a real possibility if we would like to continue to grow as writers. This visibility that I've been talking about does connect us with readers. It connects us with other authors. It creates community. And we do need those things. We can't just throw them out. So this work that we're doing, and this visibility we have, and these obligations that we create between us and our readers are real. And they are important, and they need to be kept, because that is a really necessary part of what we do. This visibility definitely does cost us energy, and we have to account for it. So I've done a lot of talking this far about what it costs and how difficult it can be and the math that goes into it. But I'd like to pivot at this point a little bit and start thinking about understanding all of these things, understanding that this visibility is expensive in time and energy and stress. What do we do with that? What do we do about it? Like, I can hear you saying, okay, Ellis, yeah, okay, I can hear that you're thinking these things. I can hear that you're feeling these things. That's great and all. I'm probably feeling them too. What do I do with it? What am I supposed to do about this? Because you tell me it's all this work and it's all this difficulty, and you say it's necessary. So what do I do with it? Like, how am I supposed to do all of this myself? Because just like you, we are only a single person. We can, of course, some people have the ability to hire PR teams and other, marketing professionals. And I would love to be that kind of person. I don't have that kind of money at this point in my life. And since I don't have that kind of money at this point in my life, what do I do about it? So we start asking ourselves what happens when maybe we post a little less, going to every other week instead of every week for the podcast. Will that upset the people who follow me. So far, nobody's been upset about it. I haven't been receiving angry emails. Nobody's been unsubscribing en masse. So I don't think anybody's upset at me because the people who are here have stayed even when I didn't post for months because I was having mental health problems or sick or something. So what would it look like to let go of that and do it every other week and get some breathing room out of it? So that's one of the things I did. What would it look like to concentrate on fewer platforms and maybe think about what platform I want to spend most of my energy on? I'm still kind of discerning that, whether or not I want to spend most of my energy on TikTok, which is where most of my audience is and most of my interactions and activity happens, or do I want to pivot over to Instagram, where I'm less comfortable and don't know the platform as well and have never really felt that Instagram was my kind of place. I post content to Instagram, but do I want to make that my main focus instead? Or do I want to pivot to LinkedIn because it's been very active lately? What I usually end up doing is I create a bunch of marketing posts, set them up to post through Patty Post, which is not sponsoring my video. My videos have never had sponsors. Nobody's paying me to say any of this. If I talk about a product, it's something I just use. I'm not getting kickbacks. I don't have promo codes or anything. I just use it. So I like Patty Post. PADDYPOST. It's a much less robust but less expensive platform that allows you to post to multiple places at once and schedule posts out. It's sort of like, I can't call it to the front of my mind at the moment, but there are a bunch of them that do that. Patty Post, you pay for it once, and it's yours forever, and it is lightweight. It doesn't have the deep analytics of some of the other platforms that I've used in the past, but it does its job, and I like it very much for that, because it doesn't require a great deal of effort. It just lets me do the thing. So I can use less energy. And instead of trying to come up with new content all the time, I've started reposting some of my older videos on TikTok, because I've been on TikTok long enough that I have a pretty deep well of reposts that I can do. So on this day, I can post that up sometimes. What boundaries can we put around these things and think about what it might feel like to do less? Or, in addition to that, what might it feel like to be less afraid of being canceled? At this point in my career, I'm not particularly afraid of anybody canceling me. I'm more afraid of having anti-trans comments coming at me than I am about being canceled, because I'm not really saying anything that could get me canceled. And even if I were, anybody who really hated what I have to say aren't people who want to hang out with me anyway. If people loathe the fact that I'm Christian and are really offended by that, that's okay. They don't need to hang out with me. They weren't the people who were going to hang out with me anyway, because not everybody is for every person. These are the decisions we have to make. And what kinds of math, so to speak, goes into those choices. Maybe letting some things go. Maybe deciding we're not going to be constantly afraid of certain responses or certain reactions. Maybe we're going to decide, as some people do very successfully, that they are not going to touch anything that could potentially be controversial and say absolutely nothing about anything, because they really just don't have the bandwidth to deal with that. I'm not casting shade on those people. I know a lot of them who are incredibly kind and very relaxed at the moment. Sorry, my phone just decided it went crazy, and I had it muted, but it decided that I needed every possible notification at once, and that's why I was staring at it. So, sorry about that. I thought I had it on silent, but I guess I didn't. These decisions to maybe show up less or differently in places can be very helpful to your mental health. And letting go of some of the fear can be very helpful to your mental health. Or deciding that you don't want to engage in something, even if it's something you believe in, because the amount of blowback that you could receive and the damage it could do to your platform could be just more than you have. Not everybody needs to be an activist on their public platform. I know there's pressure to be. I have made comments about things like the war in Palestine, when our president grabbed people out of Venezuela, when this stuff in Iran right now. I've made comments about those things, and I'm okay with making comments about those things because anybody who finds my commentary deeply offensive won't enjoy my books, and they really won't like me. Not everybody needs to take that route. It's okay if you don't want to do that and would like to just stick to writing children's books about fluffy bunnies and don't really want to have the weight of the world sitting on your professional shoulders every moment of the day. That's an okay decision to make. So, how do we let go of that pressure? The goal here, of course, is we are going to create a resilient author career, a resilient relationship with our readers, a resilient podcast in this case. How much of your public face are you willing to put on all the time? How much do you need to put on? How much do you need to share? How much do you need to reserve? Because if we don't examine the weight of this visibility we have, if we don't examine what we are having to do and carry and labor under and juggle all the time, we're going to be crushed by it. So we need to make some intentional decisions about boundaries, which is kind of what this whole Invisible Labor series has been about. If I'm entirely honest, it's largely about boundaries and setting them and figuring out where your boundaries are and what you will and won't do. So, surprise! The whole series is about boundaries, and now I've revealed it at the end and twiddling my mustache, I guess. That is it, though. That is the decision, is what boundaries we want to draw. That is the conclusion that I would like you to walk away from this with. What boundaries can you set? Both as a public figure, but regarding what you do and don't share, depending on like what work you do, what marketing things you engage with, how much back-end work you're willing to do. Set boundaries, identify your limits, find ways to minimize some of that constant movement and constant feeling. And do it with intentionality and focus and purpose. The more you do that, the more you'll find that it helps settle everything else around you. It means that there's going to be less ambiguity. If you know exactly what your boundaries are, you know exactly how far you can engage with this, how deep you're going to get into that thing. And you can let go of everything that doesn't match that. You can let go of fears if you are not going to be engaging in that. Letting go of the fear of, oh God, I'm going to miss this trend, I'm going to be behind. Letting go of that because I'm not worried about trends. To be completely honest with you, I'm aware of trends in the industry, I pay attention to them, but I don't chase them. I don't try and find the newest trending audio on TikTok to do a dance to. Unless I'm really bored and really feel like filming a TikTok and doing something goofy. That's a possibility. But it's that kind of thing that we can set boundaries around what I'm willing to do. I'm not willing to answer work emails outside of work hours with very few exceptions. I don't have my work email on my phone. So when I'm not at home, when I'm not here, I'm not working. Or if I am working, it's certainly not going to be via email on my phone. Certain individuals, if they really need to reach me, clients, if they're in an emergency, they have my phone number, they can call me, but I'm not going to spend every hour of every minute of day. If I'm not working, I'm not working. And that's a healthy thing. So discover your boundaries, find them, use them. Whether it's the boundaries around being a public figure, whether it's boundaries around how much work you're willing to do for free, whether it's boundaries around how much you're willing to engage with certain people and certain topics because you just don't have the energy for that. Finding those boundaries and creating them is really what this whole thing has been about. So like I said, surprise! It's been boundaries all along. Twiddle my mustache. We're going to be moving into a new series about the lies that authors tell themselves about being a real author. That's the next series that I'm working on here, and I'm actually really excited about it. I'm looking forward to recording those episodes, because the lie of the real author is something that we deal with and internalize and fight with a lot. And I'm hoping you're looking forward to that too. So I really am. But I wanted to finish off this series by revealing that it's all been boundaries all along, Agatha all along, and invite you to think about what it might look like to set those boundaries for yourself. And spend some time thinking about it, sitting with it, considering it. What do those boundaries look like for you, and how can you deploy them in ways that won't damage your business and will protect your mental health? Because protecting your mental health is a necessary thing for the longevity of your career, your life, and you only get one you, so you might as well protect that. Thank you for joining me here on Authority Today, where we spill the tea on the publishing industry with heart humor, hard-earned insight. If you found today's episode useful and insightful and helpful, please consider sharing it with other people. The more you share it, if you want to subscribe, whatever it is, engage with it somehow. Like it on Spotify, whatever platform you're looking at. Leave me comments. If you want to engage with me and actually have a conversation about this, I respond to comments. I don't normally see them as much on certain platforms, but I get them on my Substack. So if you want to really engage with me and get me to talk back to you directly, come check me out on Substack. That's probably where you're going to find me the most. I would love to hear what resonated with you or what you're struggling with, so maybe we can work through it together, because what you're going through could help somebody else. Your voice matters. Your story counts. And, as always, if you're still wearing pants at this point in the process, you are further ahead in the game than I am, because I tell you, I am still wearing my pajamas, because why wouldn't I be? We are entering into the personal end of this podcast. It has been a week. The sprinkler system in my church exploded 8 days ago and reenacted the Great Flood. So we have had ServPro and renovations being done on our building that we were not expecting. It's been exciting. I have not been directly involved in that, but I've been tangentially, that's a word, tangentially related to it, and helping to make decisions and voting, because I'm on the leadership group and involved in that. And this week I also approached a college about seminary, and I got a really positive response, which I'm actually quite excited about and looking forward to. So we're waiting to hear back from that. But if it goes well, I could start classes as soon as May. So when I said I'm getting ready to go to grad school, I did not mean sometime in the mists of future. I mean next month. So I've been all over the place. I am really excited about that, though. Also, spring is here. The baby cows in my field are adorable. I'm getting ready to look at planting and gardening. Every year I intend to have a garden, and almost every year I don't end up buying much of any plants until the last minute when I go to the local hardware store. I'm like, oh crap, there's some tomatoes. I'm just going to stick those in the ground and walk away, and it never goes well for me for obvious reasons. This year I'm hoping to actually plan, but I tell the lies we tell ourselves every year. I'm hoping to do that this year. So I will hopefully see you in a couple weeks, and we're going to be talking about that new series about the lies that we tell ourselves about what it means to be a real author and whether or not we match that. We're back to the hood pulling, mustache twiddling. It's largely going to be about imposter syndrome and how do we combat that while being authentic to ourselves, if I'm completely honest. So, don't tell anybody. If you're here at the very end, you didn't hear it from me. I'll see you in a couple weeks, friends. Take care out there. Stay safe.